Remember in the last video when I said this? I'm not going to say that it was a bad buy. I think that might have come back to bite me. It's been a bit of a day, and it all started with a meeting with an engineer. We were discussing the building in of this around this under the house, and right here is a bit of a low point. This post has sunk slightly over time, and it was a bit of a concern. So the builder said, before we go ahead and block in these walls that way, let's get an engineer out here just to have a look at this setup. So what used to happen is you've got this down pipe here. It comes from up the roof down to there, and then right there was a pipe that used to run the water away from the house out to a little patch out there. Now this used to be one big plot. This fence was put up when it was subdivided just before I bought the place. So all the water from the roof would come down onto that and run out that way. On top of that, the natural flow of water in this area, that's up a hill. So all the water runs down. Now we're talking serious amounts of water though. You know, this isn't going to happen that often, but the natural flow of the land is that the water runs down that street over there, and actually technically on the flood plan the water runs through my yard and out into that easement. So that's fine. I mean, I've got no problem with the water coming through. We expected that. That's only going to happen occasionally, every so often. Now the problem comes in that when this fence was put in and these two pieces of land were separated, you can see this slope from the fence back down towards this house. So that water that's going to run through my property potentially is going to come along, hit this bank, and then just start rising until it gets over this bank, and then it continues through. What the previous owner did to get around this, when this was one block, is he had that pipe there which would then run the water out into the next, into the bottom of his yard. Now that we've subdivided, he's concreted that pipe up for obvious reason. I mean, I don't blame him for that, because this is now no longer part of his property. But the problem is now I'm left in a situation where that water can't drain out. So it's just going to rise and rise and rise until it can clear that bank, and then off it goes. You may be saying to yourself, well, why don't you just run the water out onto the street, or why don't you just run the water out somewhere else? But the problem is that where my house is situated, I can't run out that direction because that's up a hill. So obviously the water's not going to run that way. I can't run that direction because that's into the subdivided property. I can't run that direction because that's into more private property. And I can't run onto the street because this property is a bit lower than the street. So you need to be running it up. And talking to the engineer, he was saying when it rains here, it doesn't rain like Adelaide. You know, he recalls one time, they had 400 millimeters of rain in 4 hours. Now that, I mean, that's just unreal, like unbelievable. How do you manage that type of water? So my first thing that I said to the engineer was, well, can't we just run a pipe underground that will fill with water, but you know, it will make daylight onto the street like I did in Adelaide? And he said, it's just not going to work. It'll rain so hard that it will just fill up your vertical pipe quicker than it can get out onto the street, and then your gutters overflow. And he said, you expect your gutters to overflow here. That's a normal thing. So putting that pipe out there isn't resolving the problem. What you need is basically an easement, a big area that all the houses run into and that runs off. So the problem is whoever created the subdivision didn't take into effect the fact that this house now has nowhere to drain. That guy over there, he can drain out into the public land. This person, straight out into the public land. This person, high enough, he can go to the streets. I have nowhere to go. So right now I'm contacting the council, and I've basically said to them, could you please give me some details on who passed this? Because basically someone came here, an inspector, someone from the council came along, looked at this and went, right guys, this all looks good. this all looks to code, let's go ahead with the subdivision, which is fine. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have, but now I need some sort of management plan to get rid of my water, because I don't have anything. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to look at this and think, well, you should have known this buying the property. You're very low down. You should have seen this as an issue. And my response to that is, I know a little bit more than the average person about building, but I certainly am not qualified to make calls on drainage and that sort of thing. If you are just some Joe Blow who knows nothing and you purchase this house, you should still have a degree of security on the council's part, in my opinion, who have agreed to this. You should have some security that you know that your water is going to be taken care of. Where the issue comes in is, obviously I want to build underneath, and the thought of rising rainwater really screws that over, and that's bad, that's awful, one of those things. But even if I don't build under there, I need to get the water out, because basically my yard is going to become a swimming pool. And that corner where the bathroom is, where it's elevated and raised, there's a slab of concrete about 50 mil thick. And if all the water is running to that point, on that post, right above that slab, it's just going to continue to slowly sink like it has been doing. So I need to keep that area as dry as possible, which is also unfortunately the lowest point in the yard. So unfortunately, not good. All the signs point to a very bad situation right now. But all I'm gonna do is work my way through this and do what I can. There's always a way around these things. It just sometimes costs a little bit of money. So I've got to work out what I need to do, and if I can save on the costs. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Once I get a bit of an answer from someone at the council, then hopefully I can work out what I need to do next.